Hello everybody and welcome to the Green Footsteps Guide introduction. Though many of you will know that we've been working on this project for the last year. It's come out of the Climate and Environment Alliance, and we're now in the really wonderful position of being able to show you what the Green Footsteps Guide is all about. So you'll see here that we've got the front page. We've had this amazing illustrator get involved with us, Holly Astle, to do some of the images throughout the guide, and they've just really finished off the information really beautifully. So we're really happy that she's been involved. Okay, so how did we get here? The Alliance, when we first formed about 18 months ago, had a lot of discussion around what would be something that would have real impact for our sector. We felt that there was an awful lot of opportunities to sit around and talk, but actually what we wanted to do as a collection of individuals and organisations was to have some real impact on the sector in the climate and environment space. So having thought about that, we decided that what we need to do at the very beginning was to declare a climate and nature emergency, because that's something that hadn't actually been done for our sector, and that then sat alongside academic institutions, the NHS, and other big organisations like Cornwall Council that had also declared emergencies previously. Once we'd done that, we were sort of challenged that actually we really needed a bit of a state of the sector baseline information about what we're currently doing within our sector at the moment in terms of climate resilience, and what were the challenges that people needed to address. So that was another thing that we decided to do. We also recognised that our sector is very busy doing the delivery, doing the work in the communities. So we really wanted to make it as easy as possible for organisations that sit outside the climate environment space to be able to take this incredible wealth of knowledge that's held within the Climate and Environment Alliance within VSF and actually utilise that to have real impact on organisations and communities across the county. So baseline data, there's a little bit of a snapshot here. There's a little bit more evidence and information about this if anybody requires it. But we asked the sorts of questions around what sort of policies do organisations have? Do they redistribute food and other things? Where do they bank? What are their buildings like? What are their audits? And you can see from here that actually one of the biggest challenges that organisations had is A, that they were time poor, and B, that they really didn't know where to start. So having information was really important to them. We all know that policies are really important to organisations to be meeting their legal requirements. And I think if you're going to be doing any sort of activity in this space, it's really important to have sustainability policies and a directive that you can follow. So when we came to make the guide, it became obvious fairly quickly that this was going to be far too much of a big project for me to work on my own. So we decided to actually go out and recruit a couple of consultants to help support us with the collection of the evidence and the data and with the write-up of the data. So we had the really quite wonderful Holly Whitelaw from the Gleaning Network and Charmian from Cornwall Climate Action Network and Community Energy Plus, Charmian Lake that is. Holly Astle, I've mentioned already, came on board to do our illustration. I'm Kirstie Edwards, the engagement manager for the Climate and Environment Alliance at Cornwall VSF, and we also did a lot of partnership work with Falmouth Town Council. Now that's mainly because me myself have been a councillor in Falmouth for a long time, and I've been quite involved in pushing our sustainability practices over there. So I'd already done a lot of this work, so it allowed me to borrow some of that work I'd done in a different sector and use it to help and support our sector. So we started off by doing 4 workshops across the width and breadth of Cornwall in Hale, Camelford, Liskeard and Truro. You can see there we had 16 participants, which came for several hours to really dig deep into some of the categories I'm going to show you in a minute. That was about 144 hours in total of people's time and discussion and evidence and advice that we collected. That then led on to about 264 hours of my time and my wonderful colleague Emily, who's done all the comms and design and branding for us. And then from the sector itself, our VCSE colleagues, about another 890 hours. So well over 1,000, and that's a conservative estimate. So this has been a really phenomenally large piece of work, brilliantly co-designed and worked across the whole of the sector together. So we start the guide by explaining why it's important to take action today. And you'll see when you look at the guide, there's a number of these little boxes of just really easy wins, how you can understand what the purpose is, what you can do immediately. So we've tried to really balance throughout the guide, having really strong evidence, deep information with really easy read, quick win pieces of information. So it isn't overwhelming. We understand everybody is very, very time poor in our sector. So we've tried to make this process as simple and easy as possible for you. So this is just a little bit of a look at the sorts of topic areas that we've covered. So we started on this topic list on the left-hand side, which you can see there's fairly self-explanatory. And then how we've actually organised the guide is it's an electronic guide, and we have the contents, and you can see, for example, here, energy. So section 3, energy, is then subcategorised into all the different parts that you would need to do for making some change within the energy part of your organisation. And we've really helpfully hyperlinked all these, so you can jump very easily. You can come to the guide and go, actually, I want to do an audit on my procurement. Click on 2.7, audit procurement. It will take you straight there. So we've really tried to make this as user-friendly as possible. I appreciate it seems like a lot of information, but when you start actually using it and doing the work, it will save you scrolling, and you can easily, very quickly and easily go, right, we're going to focus on this one tiny bit today and get going on that. So here's an example of one of the chapters. This is the chapter on resilience, beautifully commissioned image here from Holly. This was around the flooding that happened in Coverack, was my idea behind this. And actually we saw a real wealth of community collaboration to manage that really difficult few days that they had over in Coverack. Because actually we know that to have resilient communities, we all need to be working together. So you can see here there's information about emergency planning, there's physical resilience, there's what's the sort of things you need to think about in terms of evacuation. What do you need to know in your organisation? We did a project earlier, I was going to say earlier this year, but it was last year now, around resilience in our sector. So we've actually transplanted some of that information that we gathered on that day. Things that you're going to need to know if there was an emergency. Who has 4x4s in your organisation or in your community? Where are the generators if there's a power outage? Where are medical supplies? I would really urge people to work through these sections and really think about your organisation in the event of some sort of climate emergency or energy emergency, and what you can do, because we know that prepared communities make really strong communities and resilient communities moving forward. Obviously, in here, we've also got stuff about weather, communications. Obviously, we're very digital these days. So another top tip before you do anything is to make sure you have hard copies of all the answers to those questions on the left-hand side of the page there. Don't store it electronically, because if you've got no power, it'll be very difficult to access it. It also looks at longer-term emergencies and disruptions beyond Cornwall. So you can see that at the ends of each section, we've tried to give external hyperlinks. We will update and check those regularly so that you can go and actually get a deep dive and see where the evidence for this information has come from. And if you want to learn more or understand more, it's very easy for you to do that. We've done that work for you. And there's another little section here, which is about money. Again, it gives you some really well-researched, evidence-based advice. Again, this is all advice. We're not telling you what you should be choosing to do. We're giving you the best amount of information we can for you to make an informed choice. Also covers insurance, pensions. There's a huge amount of impact, climate impact from organisations that is just in the financial space. So if you're going to start anywhere, I'd urge you to start there. So what's next with this guide? So now we're moving into the delivery stage of the guide. It's about to be up live, ready, shining, ready for you to go alongside this video, which gives you a little bit of an introduction as to why and what it can do for you. Our next phase from that is to move on to what we call lunch and learns, and this will be an opportunity for anybody that would like to come along with myself and a specialist in each of these categories, so we can have a bit of a deeper dive, answer any questions around the content of the guide, give you some best practice, share information between each other, and we'll also be recording those and putting them up on the website. So if you're not able to attend those, you can go and get that support if you need to afterwards. So thanks very much. That was a very, very quick guide, rushed through of a very, very large project. And I'm really, really, really proud of this piece of work that we've done and delivered together as a VCSE. I really think it's going to be something that's very impactful. And please do get in touch with me if you need anything, any support, and you'd like to know anything else. But I do want to know if there's any questions straight off the bat, if that's okay, please.
Yep. So first question. Where can I get the guide from?
So the guide is going to be hosted on our website, on Cornwall Voluntary Sector Forum website. There is a climate and environment space on the website, which has got not just this, but it will have a huge amount of other information there that you can access. We do have copies, you can download copies. So we're quite happy for it to be hosted on anywhere that needs to go. It's also going to be utilised by Cornwall Council on the Hive space of their website. It's also going to be going onto Cornwall Climate Action Network's website. So this is a piece of work that is owned by our sector for our sector. So you can download it, you can share it, you can host it on your website. We are very, very happy for that to be the case. But your first port of call is cornwallvsf.org.
Amazing. Next up, can this be used outside of a VCSE organisation?
Absolutely, yes. So obviously we've done this with the lens of the VCSE because that's the space that we work in. It's the space that we're the experts in at Cornwall VSF. But actually this evidence could be used for anybody. It could be used for people in their own homes. It could be utilised by colleagues in the public sector. It could be utilised in the private sector and businesses. The evidence remains fairly the same. The only tweaks I would say would be potentially around the financial, that there are certain banks that we've recommended that only do charities. So that's the only thing that I would say is maybe could be a little bit of a grey area. But pretty much all the other evidence that we've got in there, it's just life. It's holistic life evidence and advice for any organisation, any individual, any community of any kind of scale to be able to implement and make some really positive changes for themselves and for the planet in our beautiful county we live in.
Amazing. Next up, how did you fact check the information?
So this is partly why it's taken us a very long time, because our starting point was to capture knowledge from individuals within the sector that we knew were experts in their field. So that was our starting point. We then spent a long time writing it up, but of course we didn't want to be doing recommendations without being sure that we knew that this wasn't just hearsay. So where possible, and I will give that remit of where possible, because information does change, we have gone and done a deep dive, evidenced and provided links to where the original evidence has come from, so it's very easy for you to go and look at that. And also from our point of view, if the evidence and advice changes, if you've got the link to a website that's regularly been updated, for example gov.uk, which is where you get some of your emissions and stuff data from, you know, that will be live and will be updated regularly itself as part of the guide, because that's how that works. So we've done our absolute best, but you know, with all of this stuff, the reason we've made this is because it is a minefield of information out there. And even as somebody like myself that is pretty well versed and has got a fairly good level of understanding, I still find it really difficult to not get greenwashed, to actually find accurate data. So we have done the very best we can. And I'm not going to pretend that it will be perfect, because that's not life. You know, we've done the best we can with the time and the evidence and the resources we've got, but I'm very, very confident in the information that we've provided.
Brilliant, thank you. Will you have any events for this guide?
So that's the plan. So what I didn't want to be the case with this is that it becomes just another dusty guide that sits on a shelf somewhere, not really doing anything. So, but of course you have to operate within capacity and within the remits of what is possible for us to achieve as an organisation and as a sector. So this is why I decided from the outset that Lunch and Learns would be a really good place. And it's why I'm recording this now rather than coming and visiting organisations, so that we understand you're busy. We understand that. So this means that you can come and look at this information on your own time when it's suitable for you. And the same will be true of the Lunch and Learn sessions. But that said, what I would really love to do once I've delivered all the Lunch and Learns is to do a really big event, a 4-day event, where we can actually get experts in the room. We can actually work through some of this with you live in a big workspace, like a giant collaborative workshop. So that's something that's not beyond the realms of possibilities. It depends whether that's something that people would feel is useful, whether that's something that wouldn't. It would be wonderful to celebrate this piece of work, because it's a really, really giant piece of work that we've delivered here. And I really do, hand on heart, believe that it's going to be very impactful. So if you'd like us to do an event, I'm very, very keen and up for doing that. So you let me know.
Amazing. And lastly, what are the next steps for this piece of work?
So next steps for this piece of work, like I said, are the lunch and learns and potentially some workshops. But also what's already happening is that I'm getting an awful lot of individuals and organisations that aren't in the VCSE coming in asking me how I can support them, what could we utilise this piece of work from beyond what we intended it to be initially. So I think that's going to be my next steps. I've already got quite a healthy list of organisations and individuals that are really interested in this piece of work and would like to see about rolling it out across other sectors. Like I said, it's not just useful for the VCSE. We've done it with that in mind because that's our role. And that's the part of the sector that I want to be supporting the most because they get the least support out of anybody. But that doesn't mean to say that we can't utilise this and showcase it and share it across the Southwest, across the country. You know, there's this information, you know, very little of it is specific to Cornwall. We've done that deep dive research where it's appropriate, but we've also deliberately tried to keep it a little bit generalized so that if it does get shared anywhere else, it's still relevant for individuals. So I think that's the next thing, is to see how it is received by individuals, to see what opportunities get presented through this piece of work. We know it's a piece of work that has been asked for a really long time. So I think the world is our oyster. Ultimately, our alliance, the Climate and Environment Alliance, wanted to have impact. That was our top line objective. We wanted to have impact. So what that impact looks like, we're open to what that impact looks like, but nothing is off the table in terms of what we do with it next. So if you've got ideas, please do get in touch with me. It's kirstie.edwards@cornwallvsf.org.
Amazing. Thank you, Kirstie.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everybody.